Hey everyone, Doug here from 2+ Stuff, and I'm still cranking out some Warcry train. Did a little bit of progress after I stopped streaming yesterday, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of hang out and do a little bit more. I'm just working on the, so if you don't know, I'm doing the Corpse Rack Mausoleum, which is of course the Garden of Morr set, and so the buildings are pretty much done, and I'm going to go ahead and start cranking out the fences, and so we'll go to the downward cam here. And I'll show you my cluster mess of a workspace here. And so I went ahead and put all of the base coat color on all the skulls on everything, except for the ones on that are like inside the fence, or the little skull sitting right there, just because I wanted to get the steel done first. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just doing all the metals right now. And yeah, so we're gonna do the metals from there. I have to do the highlight layer of bone color, Shopty bone, and all the bones that are on the ground, and then the roses and flowers and stuff. That's pretty much it. It's one of those things that it's not complicated, this set. It's just time consuming, but it's very, very straightforward and it looks fantastic. So Maniacal Gamer, hello from Delaware. Hello. And Michael is back from T-Shift. Yes, so let's chat about that. I went to visit my good friend Mr. Jack from Rerolling Ones over at T-Shift. I guess I didn't know what to expect. I heard of T-Shift and like the fact that it exists, but it's kind of like a big GT, and I don't know if this is the first year for Age of Sigmar. I can't remember it being last year. Maybe Michael, you would know, but regardless, yeah, there was a big GT there. It was for, I think the only things I saw were 40k and AOS. There's a Twitch channel, I think they are. I think they're also on YouTube sometimes, called Dimensional Cascade, and they basically took the reins on all of the AOS content, as far as like they did a couple streams. They had this really nice setup. I took a picture of it. It's on Instagram. I don't know. I almost said Twitter, but I was like, no, I don't really use Twitter that much. Michael says it's their second year. Second, and last year was their first. Only 10 people. Okay, cool. Well, that's still, I mean, it looked great from this year. A lot of well-painted armies. And I forgot to do the bone on that one. Okay. And that one. Man. So, yeah, I'm just going to be doing a little bit of hobby. I saw Michael there with your sweet-looking Iron Jaws. And, fun fact for everyone watching the stream, I actually grabbed my old Iron Jaws army back from Jack. It's one of those things, so I wanted to buy some Iron Jaws units for Warcry, and also because the new Orruk Warband's book, because I have Bone Splitter, so I'm going to be buying that book anyway. I might as well splash in a few Iron Jaws, that kind of stuff. And Jack was kind enough to be like, why don't you just buy these back? Like, they have Shu from Rerolling One, his Iron Jaws army. It's like, we don't need it. Just take them back. And so, yeah, we basically just, I bought them right back off of him. And it was sweet, so I'm glad that I have good enough friends to do that kind of stuff with. But yeah, so I have Iron Jaws, and I'm actually gonna bring the Iron Jaws to Nova. And the reason is, I'm so glad I did these live streams of like just chatting with people. I mentioned that Jack and I were going to be playing Stormcast, and one of the guys in the chat spoke up and said, hey, you should really check the rules, because a lot of times for doubles events you can't both run the same allegiance. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I went back to the Nova site, and sure enough, like, they had updated the site from, because there wasn't a lot of information when I actually purchased my ticket. So, you know, we're trying to plan stuff, but they didn't have the information ready, and then they didn't announce when they updated it. So it's one of those things, like, you know, I'm gonna respectfully leave it on a comment card or something, but it's not a huge deal. I can imagine that's going to be an issue when I get there. There's gonna be plenty of people like, oh, I didn't know that. So anyway, so then I did figure that out, and I was like, well, you know, what armies do I have in my wheelhouse? I'm still not in the zone that I really want to paint a 2K army, especially when I'm like right at the cusp of Nova, right? It's this month is when I'm leaving. It's like, I do not want to rush again. And all those things just kind of fell into place, and so I'm quite happy with that. Although I am going to go back and touch up the Bone Splitters now because the Iron Jaws have blue armor. That wave of Iron Jaws that did have blue armor. And so I was like, well, I would love now for the Bone Splitters to have blue tattoos. I went for a red just to do something different, but I would like to see them kind of have something in common. So yeah, that's kind of what's on my radar right now. Omniphage, is that a new achievement? Buy an army, paint an army, trade away an army, and then trade it back. Trying to think, have I done that before? I think so. I've gotten armies back before. No, I guess I haven't. I mean, it's always stayed within our wheelhouse. Yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten one back. Usually my MO is that I trade Jack for some unpainted thing that he has. That's actually how I didn't realize it until I was going back in my Instagram history where it's like I forgot that I had given him the Fire Slayers, I think, for the Iron Jaws, so that was kind of funny. I was like, I forgot that I had painted Fire Slayers. Because there was actually a moment like 4 weeks ago where someone had a stellar deal on Fire Slayers, and my finger was over the trigger, and I was like, that's a real good deal. So, but I'm good. You know, I'm happy. Plus, you know, it's one of those things that, like, what I'm really happy about is that all I've signed up for at Nova is 1,000 point things. So I'm gonna bring, well, I don't know how much I'm gonna bring. I'm gonna bring stuff for Warcry and Underworlds and Kill Team. I'm just gonna bring anything I can do to hang out with people. But I like not feeling like I have to pack a 2,000 point army, right? Let's see. Bone Splitters are a fun warband. Oh, in Warcry? They look like it. They look just beefy. This is the most tedious thing. Then just don't ever let me get rid of terrain anymore, guys. Just be like, Doug, don't do it. Don't sell it. Well, faction terrain. I'll make an exception for faction terrain. I can get rid of that, but I wonder if there's going to be an Iron Jaws faction terrain. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like they would. It's just the way all releases have been going lately. So. Let's see. Glad I could help on the doubles thing. Oh yes, thank you. If that was you, I'm so sorry if I didn't give you proper credit. But yeah, that was I was a little bit disappointed in the communication levels for the events. Like the actual the event proper, right? Like when you sign up for your like literal ticket to walk into the gaming hall of Nova. That they have like a newsletter, and that's been fantastic. I feel very well informed about all that noise, but the actual when it comes down to like the event level, that there's been a few things where I'm like, do I need stuff? What do I need to do? So that's okay. Actually reminds me, I gotta go back and check all the I only signed up for 2 classes. I signed up for basing with Duncan and battle damage, like how to damage your models with Vince Ventrella, which I'm very excited about. I gotta go double check, make sure they didn't have any requirements or anything like that. I take solace in knowing that the Duncan class is at least that's probably set up by someone else who gets paid to communicate well, and then Vince just seems like a very great communicator. So yeah. Let's see. Rushing stuff can be a problem. I rushed painting Flesh Eater Courts for a tournament. Kind of burnt out a bit. Yeah, and honestly, I think that definitely happened with me with the Stormcast for a bit. Like, I rushed to get 2,000 points done, and I didn't give myself enough time to like chill afterwards. And so I don't necessarily think that I'm like done with Stormcast, but it kind of burned me out on painting. Like, not necessarily that army, but just projects of doing large forces and that kind of thing. That's why I kind of backed off the what do you call them? The Vanguard stuff. I was like, I don't want to touch a brush. I don't want to look at a Stormcast. So I completely understand that. I tried to like force myself into working when I got my bone splitters, and I was like, this is just making it worse. I need to just take a break. But now I'm all pumped. Let's see. I'm looking at the friends I play against and don't mind that I take forever to paint. Prevents me from burning out, which is nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and no one rushes me to paint. I just like playing with painted models. You know, no one's ever been a jerk to me. Our local events here, they have painting requirements. My understanding, if I'm not mistaken, at least for many, at least the ones that I've been to, you can bring unpainted stuff, but you are ineligible for any kind of prizes or that. So you kind of basically become invisible, but you can still, you know, pay money to play games, which is generally all I care about when I'm going out for a day right now. I just want to pay you $15 and I get 3 games of quality time and hanging out with people that I like. Okay, let me get a little more silver. Keep trying to get my brother to finish painting an army for doubles, but Warcry seems to have grabbed him more. Yeah, it gets you. When will we get the lore on the new warbands? Well, I was reading through the book. I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of lore in the Warcry book. So I'm going to do basically a lore video on like the premise I'm hoping to do this week. Like, you know, the literal setting of where they're fighting, and kind of introduce the warbands and that kind of stuff. And then they actually released a Black Library novel with the set that I will be reading, because I think that'll add a lot of context to stuff. So, because like there really is like a paragraph, if that, for each of these warbands. I'm like, oh, that sucks for a lore channel, but yeah, we'll make it work. We'll make something happen. It's certainly the thing that I'm excited about. I mean, you know, here's the thing, like, I don't necessarily think that Warcry is intended to be a setting necessarily for, well, let me think about that. I don't think it's meant to have its own individual story arc, but it seems like a really great way to communicate cool small scale stories. I guess I can do the gate here. No, I already got the gate. Okay. The other one's Jack. Hi, Doug. Hello, Jack. Jack did very well today, or this weekend, I should say. I don't know how you did in your last game. I didn't check the messages yet, but I know you did fairly well the weekend. So everyone, golf clap for Jack. Plus, Jack busted his hump. Speaking of people who rush, man, you cranked out a bunch of ether wings to get your list ready for this weekend. Yeah, I commend you for that. Let's see. I was wondering if Warcry is evidence that they are having trouble with the Dark Oath. The warbands are super cool, but they seem like they might have been potential Dark Oath looks. I don't know. It's a tough one. I think those models were in development probably so long ago that I do think they were intended to be their own thing. I think that Mortal Chaos is just in a really weird place, and I'm not sure if they have a game plan or what it is that they do. But I doubt it's a situation where it's like, oh my god, we have these models, they don't belong in this army. Like, nah, I'm pretty sure they start some of those inspirations with design of where things are going. Zombie Man question. Doug, you ever thought about doing lore from the Liber Chaotica? It's not AOS, but lore about chaos overall in 40k and fantasy. From what I understand, that book is super hard to get, isn't it? I mean, I'm up for whatever. You know, if I have the book, I'll do it. Like, a patron, Rasmus, sent me the Tomerkin's Horde thing. I did that. But yeah. No, I sent it right back to him. He's a cool guy. Just really loves Tomerkin. To the point where it's infectious. I was like, I wanted to build a Forge World Tomerkin army. Like pricing it out of my phone. I was like, well, you can't build a real Tomerkin army without him himself. I was like, well, that's rough. Let's see. I got one. If you ever want. Oh, cool. Yeah. Shoot me a message on whatever social media you like, or of course, Patreon has its own messaging system. We can coordinate that. That'd be awesome. I'll definitely do that for you. I take requests. I'm for hire. I mean, honestly, I think most of the chaos stuff. I'm trying to think of like. You know, the idea of like the warp is different, but with the exception of demons being a lot more stable in AOS, they haven't changed a lot. I mean, that's the thing, is not that they haven't changed a lot, but they haven't vocalized a lot of differences, right? Like, they haven't really done a really great job of explaining the chaos gods themselves in AOS. So like, we're kind of left to like assume that they're still the same, but we don't know because they don't say anything, which I'm not really a fan of, but yeah. But if you send it to me, I'll definitely give you a shout out and props, and if you have anything you want to pimp, like a local store or I don't know, Instagram feed, whatever, tell me. Definitely. Let's see. Jackie Min 10th, 3-2. Oh, you say sadly, but wasn't that your goals to go 3-2? Lost twice to Flesh Eater Courts, but they were both very close games. Lost every crucial. Yeah, I was there. So I was picking up the Iron Jaws today when Jack was playing. I felt really bad for distracting him, but yeah, all the priority rolls, a lot of dud attacks, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was a real bummer. Sometimes your dice just give up. That happened to me, the second game I played last weekend when I was doing the game day. Just cut me. I couldn't land a hit. Like, and I have like 3 up, charging my weapons on my sequiturs, re-rolling. I could not do a thing. It's like, well, okay, it's just what the universe wants right now, I guess. Let's see. Kind of don't know what they want to do for Dark Oath. Some factions get developed from old sets, like Kane Elves. Others skipped old similar models. Slaves to Darkness do have swing models. I wouldn't be surprised if like Marauders went away. You know, as far as like models they have that I don't see a huge future for. Just because this, you know, scopes need to be updated. And honestly, like if you build your Warcry warbands and you just kind of put them all together on a board, I would look at that and be like, that is a cool Marauder horde. Just play it as that. I know they have their own war scrolls, but they look so much better than Marauders, and they still have that same kind of like, well, at least the Untamed Beast can definitely pass as those guys. Okay. Phase. One big difference between Chaos and AOS and Fantasy Battles. Seems that AOS Redemption is much more viable. Oh, like redeeming someone. They got like Tornus. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so the perspective is different too. So instead of being like this third person perspective in the Imperium, where like, you know, all the books and stuff like that, like they really are from the human's perspective in their grand story. Whereas in Age of Sigmar, we have this outside the bubble perspective where we see the gods and we see the mortals and how they interact, and we get insight that the mortals wouldn't have, kind of thing. And we see the gods playing with souls like they are playthings. I don't know, it's interesting. It is a little different. And that souls can be played with. That's an interesting thing. Sorry, let's get a drink here. On the face of the unmade war scrolls funny. They are mostly terrible, and the champion is a hero level fighter. Yeah. Zaku Doug, I remember many moons ago you said you'd get into Free People if a book came out. Are you doing this? 4 steam tanks in 1 list. Oh, you know, let the dust settle. Let's see what the book looks like. If I can build a fun human army that has steam tanks and stuff like that, mostly human. I'm cool with including a few other things. I would definitely do that, and what I would do is take my Stormcast and then slow grow human stuff on the side. But yeah, I'm totally open to that. 110%. So, AOS coach, everyone clear a room. Hero is walking by. Just hanging out, painting some corpse rack mausoleum. I keep looking at the box to the right of me because I have to, because I will never remember the name, because I just keep wanting to call it. Actually, I want to keep calling it the Sigmarite Mausoleum, other than the Garden of Morr. So yeah, let's see here. Where's that brush? Working on Warcry right now. Awesome. I don't know if I would ever do 4 steam tanks in 1 list. That seems intense. Those things are a lot of work to actually like make them look really good. There's a lot of like little details you can go into. So, of the folks that I have in the chat, how many of y'all have actually had a chance to play Warcry? For me, I am hoping to get my game in this Thursday with my friend Ben at my local gaming group. I know they've been excited to try it because, you know, a lot of folks didn't want to buy into it. He actually plays Daughters of Cain in AOS, and so he was like, okay, well, you know, why not grab their card? It'd be silly if you already have an army that's supported. So he bought that for $8. What else? And the other guys who are there, you know, they're very optimistic, they're very interested, but they were like, you know, they jumped into Necromunda, they jumped into Kill Team, and so a little like apprehensive about like jumping into yet another skirmish level game, which makes perfect sense. So, because Games Workshop has been cranking those out lately. They mentioned, you know, also like, oh, I also jumped into Shadespire, and it's like, well, I kind of think that Shadespire is its own thing, to be honest with you, but. I don't feel like that kind of fits into the grand thing that is AOS, you know, in the same way. Let's see. Benefits of having a bank holiday Monday. Get to check out Doug Live. Ooh, nice. Yeah, it is 6:28 and somewhat uncomfortably warm here. I don't handle the heat well. I'm a wuss. I know you're down in Australia or whatever. I would just die. Which, I mean, people don't expect, because I'm actually from Texas, which gets, I mean, they're well into the hundreds in the summer. But, you know, it's one of those things, once I left Texas, I was like, oh, I don't have to live like that. I will choose not to. Let's see. Got my first game in on Thursday. Fun, super fast. Card game building. It was a bit kooky and super fun. Card game building. I don't know, I showed that one. Like, if you mean like the abilities and that kind of stuff. I'm excited to get some games in. Let's see. Really like Shadespire, but Lord help me, you have a pretty good grip on the rules or you end up doing nothing. Yeah, it's I mean, I only play it casually, and that's probably honestly the most I will ever do. Because I'm one of those things that, like, I can't do it for AOS either, where the competitive folks can, like, have a mind for, like, the things that are going to be out there. Like, oh yes, I can assume when I go to this event that, like, you know, this kind of Slanesh army I can face, and how that army functions, and you think about that as you're building your list. And for Shadespire and Magic the Gathering players, like, oh, you do the same thing with, like, the myriad of card combinations. I'm like, I can't. I'm just gonna build my thing. I'm gonna learn my thing well, and probably get stomped. And that's okay. Like I said before, as long as I show up, I get my 3 games in that I paid for, it's a win. I mentioned that Gates is the worst. Let's see. Warcry is a great game for after work. Easy to learn, quick to play. Yeah, dude. Let's see. AOS coach, your terrain painting is very relaxing, very zen-like. Yes. Well, you know, my hero is Bob Ross, and that's exactly what I strive to be. I got myself a big green screen. I think at one point I'm going to do a little Bob Ross-esque skit, if nothing else. I should do that when my hair gets long again. I gave up on the fro. It got so stinking hot. The dreaded meta, yeah. Happy little skulls, yes. That's actually one of the things I actually do when I get back from Nova. I'm going to there's a bunch of places in Seattle that do those, like, wine and painting nights, where basically you get a few glasses of wine with your ticket, and then you sit around and there's an artist there that teaches you how to paint. So Jess and I wanted to do one of those for a long time, just as, you know, just being a fun couple, doing fun stuff, and, like, stuff you don't normally do. And yeah, she was like, oh, there's this one that does, like, Star Wars paintings, and you can, like, paint a Death Star. And I was like, no, it's fine. I don't want to just go because it's nerdy. But then I found out, I believe it's a young lady who does, like, she's like, I guess Bob Ross has his own, like, official painting school. Oh, you know, in memoriam, obviously. He's not alive anymore, but and so she's been like, Bob Ross certified. And so I was like, yeah, we're going to that one. I want to paint happy little trees. Anyway, point is, I want to learn how to do that stuff, and then I want to make my own backdrops for videos and fantasy stuff like that, so I can make my own little slice of the mortal realms. Plus, generally speaking, when I'm at work, I just have Bob Ross on a playlist. My goal is always to be as affirming as him. That's why we were joking. I think the last stream I did yesterday, someone was trying to goad me into saying that an army idea sounds stupid, and I was just like, nah, dude, just go with it. The army idea was Necron Hello Kitty, and they actually ended up painting that and shared it on Facebook with me. I was like, yes. Real mess here. Suppose at some point I should break down and get an airbrush. Let's see. I predict a ton of Raven versus Raven matches when they hit the store. Oh, you mean like the Corvus Cabal? They're certainly my favorite aesthetically. Without question. I say that they're my favorite. Like, they're my favorite aesthetically of the new warbands. As far as the ones that already exist, the ones that really catch my eye, or anything with I now officially have enough to fill an army of every single one of the destruction ones, which is funny because I don't usually play destruction armies. And you know, the Legions of Nagash one, it seems interesting. I don't quite get it. It seems a little too necromancer focused, but they didn't make him a baller like I kind of assumed they would. I thought they would make, like, you know, here's your core leader guy that takes up a significant amount of your list, and he's going to be doing all kinds of BA stuff, and he kind of just seems like he's there, and there's some abilities that make him cool, but I don't know. And then we just got these little gates on here. Airbrush is one of the best investments I've made. Okay, right on. The biggest thing is, like, I see Shu from Rerolling Ones and Jack uses an airbrush, and seeing friends use it makes me comfortable. Not in like a, well, if they can figure it out, surely I, as a smarter person, could. More in like just seeing the machine around and hearing it being used and seeing the results they get as someone who's not a pro painter and that kind of stuff. Definitely makes it seem less intimidating. Let's see. I reckon Legion of Nagash is a plant for a new undead faction. Yeah, maybe if they go like just all skellies, that's all it is. But it could be its own thing. Maybe we just didn't know what else to call it. Zombies would have been interesting to have in Warcry. Problem is, they'd be so cheap. That would kind of throw things off. Gentrification, big fan. I was wondering, do you think the Astral Templars are too, like, savage to be sequiturs or come from the Sacrosanct Chamber, like lore-wise? No, every Storm host, which is like Astral Templars, Hammers of Sigmar, whatever that, they all have every chamber. From my understanding, some are smaller, some are larger. But my understanding is they all have access to everything. So absolutely. I mean, I don't think they're too feral. I mean, sorry, my cat made some noise. Got distracted. You know, I mean, maybe they just hunt beasts differently. You know, I mean, having the robes and stuff, and having a mission that has them fight in different ways and have different roles doesn't mean they're any less. I don't know. They hold honor of combat and the hunt in any less esteem. Would be what I would tell folks. It's like, you know, no matter how bad, I always make this when someone talks about, like, especially if they're a 40k player. The unsung hero, right, of the Imperium of Man and all Space Marines is the Space Marine who, like, just drives the ship. You know what I mean? Like the Thunderhawk. Just someone who just sits there and just drives. A little bus driver. So my point is, like, you know, they all have access to everything. Everyone has a job. And you can have a guy with the job of being a sacrosanct chamber dude. Dude, man, bro. Krell seems like he may be able to be a Nagash ally in the lake, hoping for an expansion of Death Rattle, merging it with Death Mages. That'd be cool. Let's see. Give me one sec. Oh, here it is. Okay. Hey Doug, how are the Gloomspot units for Warcry? I have a Squig army currently painting a Squig hurt. Sweet. I haven't played with them yet, but if you're asking how they're coming, I started painting the Warhammer Underworlds crew, and I got distracted because then my set actually came. At that point, it was like, okay, this is now go time for getting content out there. So I put away this stuff that needed a ton of work, so they went on the shelf because I have Stormcast and Bone Splitters cocked, locked, and ready to rock. So I was like, you know, why don't I spend time painting stuff that isn't ready if I'm kind of in that mode to get content out there. So they're coming. I have their cards and everything like that. I want to take a good long look at kind of what the army does before I start building, simply because they have a lot of options when it comes to the Squig Riders, and I have an unbuilt Squig Hopper or whatever kit. So yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Pretentification, for support. I really do appreciate it. Bounders, Hopper, Shabbos, yep, whole bunch of stuff. We got Bounders are awesome. Grots or speed bumps. I don't have many Grots, so I got, like I said, the Underworld set, and that comes with 3 Grots with Shootas, and then 1 Grot with a net. 2 just normal Squigs on their own, which I don't know if those are in the Warband or whatever about that, but you know. And then 1 guy with a Fanatic with the ball, which he can't be taken, but whatever. Hoppers are faster? I don't know. So let's see here. And so the way I do skulls is I put down Xandri dust, give it a wash with Seraphon sepia, and then go over the higher points with Shabti bone. Makes it nice and the color pop, which is nice because, so if you didn't catch it, if you look at the base of this sucker, it's kind of got that sandy thing. It's matching one of the sides, and I'll show you here in a second. Matching one of the sides from the board that came with the Corpse Rack Mausoleum. Mainly because I did not want to paint snow on all my buildings. I was like, nope. Maybe I'll do the snow thing with the proper Warcry set, you know, like with the terrain you get in that. But for this, I want it done quick and efficient. Let's see. Really like the Gloomspite Gets box from Shadespire for units. So good for Warcry. Nice. I'm glad I got it. I mean, I also play Underworlds every once in a while. I think I'm on like 5 or 6 games in now. Really enjoy it. There's a lot of things I'm still kind of coming to grips with as far as understanding the rules. But point is, there's a lot of reasons to buy that box, particularly if you play both games. But of course, you can get it for a couple bucks cheaper without the cards. And this is the last one. Let's see here. Squigs are an option. They are surprisingly elite, though. You'd think 4 attacks, 4 is to hit, 2 is to wound, -1 would get work done. Identification. Do you have a favorite Chaos Warcry Warband? That would be the Corvus Cabal, the Bird Boys. And when I do those videos with those in it, I am going to splice in clips of Bird Person from Rick and Morty, because I can't look at them without thinking of him. Just someone kills my leader of my Corvus Cabal and it's the Bird Person. It's like, that's what my people call a dick move. So yeah, which might, break the narrative illusion a little bit, but by golly, it sounds fun. Actually, I guess while I have the skull here, the Xandria dust, I can start working on these skulls on the actual fence. I don't know what groundskeeper works at this cemetery, but he is doing a terrible job. Someone's just been putting dead people's skulls all over this fence. I wish that I could cut them out. I can't wait to see that. Hope they introduce ogres to Warcry and the Warband is like 2 ogres. That would be funny. Yeah, I found some guy made a blank card, like fighter card generator type thing. So I do already have plans on having on fighting a Korgorath, because I think that sounds super fun. I got big plans for Warcry. It's one of those things, like, I just think the game is gonna end up being so much better for narrative folks than competitive play. But we'll see. We'll see what they add to it. Hopefully they don't have to go like Kill Team and be like, hey, just to keep competitive people interested, here's Arena. And it's like, oh, what's Kill Team Arena? Oh, it's a flat board now that takes away all the fun of fighting in a 3-dimensional space. Oh. Cool. I know it's fun. I know as Kill Team Arena it can be fun. I just don't see as many people having fun. My local GW did a Kill Team Kill Team tournament thing recently, and like it just didn't look as fun as other Kill Team stuff just because it's all flat. I'd be happy if Warcry wasn't competitive. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great system and very simple and intuitive so that people can have the highest number of games and memories where you walk away going, remember that one time you harpooned my dude off the 2nd floor? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have those gamer memories. I think that is, to me, the ultimate goal of these kinds of games. Because, you're not going to prove that you have better military acumen by playing better at 40k than someone. Like, no, but you can like share those memories and have a good time with friends, and that's what it is. And I think that it is a good baseline system to produce that. Actually, get the bottoms here just a smidge. 100% the squigs. I'm gonna see if I enjoy using and playing and building the squigs, because like the squiggle-anch is something that I would consider for an army, but of course I'm very cautious about buying into a new force now that I kind of hit that wall when it comes to painting a full 2,000 point army. Plus I have a whole bunch of bone splitters to paint, but it's on my horizon. Someday I gotta paint that. I gotta play Nurgle so I can actually use my Glotkin again. And then I have to play Seraphon, just to paint him. It's just me or Stormcast stuff seem excessively expensive point-wise, trying to build my army to get to 1k super fast. Are you talking for AOS, or are you talking for Warcry? I haven't really looked too hard at the points on Warcry, to be honest with you. If you're talking AOS, one of the things I do appreciate about Stormcast, and why I haven't gotten rid of mine, is that I really appreciate that I don't pull models off as fast as I used to do for Beast of Chaos. I put so much work into painting these, at least let them stay on the board for one more turn. That's all I felt like when I was playing Beast of Chaos. I mean, that's the nature of that army. They just die, but whatever. Warcry. No, I haven't looked at him quite yet. People are telling me that the Gryph-hounds are amazing, which is great because I actually painted up 6 of them specifically for that. Jack needed Ether Wings, so he hooked me up with some Gryph-hounds because for whatever reason the Start Collecting box for Vanguard only comes with 3, which is lame. And I hooked him up with some Ether Wings. Let's see. Doug, if you'd keep the Beast of Chaos, you'd have a Nurgle army as well. Well, nuts to that. I got so tired, but it's not a Nurgle army in the sense of like, they don't feel Nurgle-y. I don't know. I think Nurgle, I think like toughness, or I mean that's why I have Plague Marines on my wall for Kill Team, and eventually 40k. I will be doing 40k at some point this year. Probably when I get back from Nova. And I don't know. They just didn't have no staying power. It's just still bodies. But think of the synergy. See, that's the problem, is I don't. I don't think of the synergy. This is why I've put the call out to a few people, and actually I mentioned it to Michael, who's in the chat. Or at least he was a little while ago. Who's at T-Shift today. I was like, I need help building a 1,000 point list for Iron Jaws, because I don't look for synergies, but I also know that Jack enjoys winning, and so when we go to this 2-player event thing, I want to bring my A game. I don't want him. I want to at least keep up, right? Do you have any predictions for the next Stormcast chamber? Predictions? No. I can daydream. What I would want, if I could make anything, is I want a chamber full of defects. We saw in Soul Wars what happens when a reforging doesn't go quite right. There's this lightning geist monster, and I won't talk too much about it because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't read it. But basically, the soul busts out and has its own weird half lightning form, and it's all mad and crazy. And I thought that was awesome. So having a unit of the lightning geists and that kind of stuff would just be so rad. So yeah, I mean, kind of like yeah, it would be the Papa Roach chamber, right? This last resort. And that's exactly what I would call it. But the idea is it's not too dissimilar from tropes that they already do, of being like, what are the Blood Angel guys in black called? Right, from 40k, the Blood Angels who are in black, because the idea is they've lost their minds, and they're just kind of unleashed on the battlefield to like say, you know, you're gonna get struck down, but we afford you, Death Company, thank you. We afford you the opportunity to die doing what you really want to do, which is avenging chaos and fighting for the Imperium. I think that kind of thing for Stormcast would be so cool. Thank you, everyone on the internet, but me, who knew what Death Company was. I totally had a brain for it. And I actually played with those models before. When I flirted with 40k for a little while, doing Blood Angels. Will Stormcast always be Humies? Does the lore support other kinds? Well, I mean, the lore supports anything. And the reason I say that is because when a Stormcast dies, they are not brought back to Azir. Their souls are, and a new body is crafted for them. And it looks like the same, but it isn't. And that kind of causes some weird feelings for Stormcast. And the point is that someone could have been a Dwarden in life if they were chosen. Sigmar makes them a body. So we don't... technically, the lore supports the idea that he turned people from one race into a Stormcast. That is its own thing. And what else? So yeah, it could be. I would love it if there was just like, you know, the Dwarden chamber, and these Stormcasts were just as wide but as tall as humans, and just like tubby little things. That'd be amazing. All right, so what am I doing now? I'm gonna do a little bit of dry brushing on the stone portions here, and then we'll go back over and we'll start doing the flowers and junk. Sigmar is going to make multiple sizes of armor. You get beefcake standard. That's right. Here we are. Old Swan Great. Let's see. Yeah, I'd be up for anything. I feel like if they were going to have a whole bunch of different races and that kind of stuff, the Vanguard Chamber would have been a great way to introduce that, just because I personally would have designed elves for that. Legolas, what do your elven eyes see? And it's just like, I don't know, Sigmar, it's probably near the giant volcano made of blood. That's probably where everyone bad is. Because that's how AOS works. Let's see. Atomic Topher. Oh, new prediction. The light of recent deletion. Seraphon will be rolled into Stormcast and Jurassicast. That would be amazing. Speaking of which, I do want them to touch on more like the relationship between Seraphon and Stormcast Eternals, because they're both like from Azir. They both like are really into light and lightning, and it's just like I feel like there's a story there, right? You know, whether they're like it's the girl you went out on a date with a couple times at college. She shows up, but people know that there's something there, but no one wants to talk about it. It's that kind of thing where it's just like, dude, we know that you're the god of light, and these wizards are kind of into light. We know what's up. Hugh, hey Hugh. What else we got? Christopher, are there any lore stories about encountering the Lightning Geist? Nope, just the Soul Wars. It's a very specific thing that makes them when a reforging goes south. One might even describe it as cattywampus. Let's see. Are there any, might have missed it in the Flesh Eater Court review, but I love one detail. The ghouls who died went to the afterlife they think they deserve, so eligible for Stormcasts. But the Necroquake broke that. Yeah. So they, if they perceive themselves as like Lancelot, you know what I mean? Like in their little weird world, wherever that is the eternity they go to. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's probably the closest thing to a happy ending in fantasy. And then they took it away with the Necroquake. I was like, oh. Can you Stormcast in Warcry? You sure can. It is only a few select units though, so don't assume that your entire collection will work, but it's all the Vanguard stuff. Yeah, most of the Vanguard stuff. The Paladors won't cross over. But I think everything. I was trying to think. So there was Ether Wings, the Griff Hounds. Non-mounted Vanguard. Yeah. I hope one day there's an expansion that brings in more of the mounted stuff. I mean, for another reason, I just don't see why there's eels in the game, but there's not bone splitters on the boars. You know what I mean? They're smaller. It seems like they would make more sense for going over the buildings and terrain, but whatever. I don't know. Let's see. Have you talked about the new Ogre Tyrant? Not really. I don't know anything about Ogres and all that kind of stuff. I saw the new Tyrant model. I like him. I like the idea of moving away from Finecast for sure. My assumption is it's going to be a part of a 2-player starter box. Because that seems to be how they are introducing a lot of these one-off heroes. Either they come, alternate sculpts come through like Warhammer Underworlds, of which there's no ogres in, or these 2-player boxes. Everyone who plays Beast of Chaos should be happy about that new. I think it's a shaman sculpt in the new Underworlds, that kind of thing. So yeah, Tristan, have a wonderful night, my friend. Malign Portent Story Price of Apotheosis has a lightning geist, I think. Oh, I'll check it out. Is that site still up? I have no idea. Honestly, I think 2 weeks into the stories being released, I kind of got burnt out on going there every single day. So I was like, I'll check it out later. And so then I kind of read it all at once when it was all over. Let's see. There are quite a few Bone Splitter options. Deep can have so few choices. It's true. I feel like there's no reason not to. But, you know what I mean. It's fine. I get that there's multiple options for him. Bone Splitters, that is. Okay, so those are all done. The light's over here, and so it made the fences look way lighter than the actual buildings, and so I was like, holy crap, did I just ruin all this paint job? No, it looks fine. Most of my Stormcast is Vanguard, like Lore Guerrilla Warfare. Oh, that's cool. I wish I don't know, I feel like there was better ways to capture the idea of stealth, but they're pretty cool. I certainly like them. I love the Paladors. I have 9 of them, I think, total. I haven't built them all, but love the models. Let's see. just going through and doing random dry brush bits. But these are coming together pretty quick. What's your pros and cons of AOS? Pros and cons. Pro. It's pretty. I like it more than the Grimdarkness of the 41st Millennium. I find that the rules are pretty straightforward. I mean, there's a few interactions as the rule books have gotten more complex. But on the whole, I think it's a pretty, certainly compared to fantasy battles, it's a lot more simple. Cons. Game length. I feel like I don't like that at most events think that 2K or bust. I'm like, no, man, we should really 1500 is, I think, much better. But the amount of books you have to carry is getting up and up and up. Yeah, the cons. I mean, the pros. I just think outweigh them pretty well. It's a good game experience. Very easy to get involved in. The requirements, especially for non-tournament games, are certainly very low in terms of like you just need a hero and a couple battle line choices. That's very doable. Yeah. Have a wonderful day, Mr. AOS Coach. I want to have you on. Before you leave, I want to have you on the While You're Reforging podcast sometime. I'd love to reach out to you at some point. It'd be awesome. Have a wonderful day. But yeah. I gotta stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning again. I think I did that one time with it was Joel McGrath when we talked about Beasts of Chaos once. I was up till like he couldn't be free until it was 2 o'clock in the morning my time, and so by the time we actually did meet and chat online, I was just dead. I'm glad I wrote down some questions beforehand because I was not in a mental place to be an intelligent host. I only care for the lore of AOS and 40k. Cool. That's all I talk about. Because luckily, Underworlds and that kind of stuff, they're still in the same universes, which I like. This a good shake real quick. Soul stuff is interesting for AOS. To me, the idea of them as currency and mutable. Yeah. The Slanesh and Elves are very cool. Yeah, Sorry, I was just reading something. Yeah, the idea of souls being so malleable and that the gods just kind of just view them as playthings. I thought, like, oh, that's so brutal. And then when you get into that, it's like, well, Nagash kind of has a point sometimes about Sigmar being a tool. Because Nagash is like, well, at least I'm honest about it. And you're like, well, I mean, you got me there. Like the little, if anyone knows that internet meme. I love that one. More humans coming soon. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Do you usually use Citadel paints, or do you branch out other companies? I usually stick with Citadel or Army Painter. The biggest thing for me is consistency. So if I start with a line, I want to be able like to replicate it later on or something like that. And so those two companies, just because they're long-standing companies and they've produced paints for a long time, they're certainly the most, I would say, stable out there. I'm open to trying new things for sure, especially with like stuff that's easy to try, like washes. You can just experiment with different effects and stuff. I'm open to all of that. I mean, what got me hooked on GW paints in the beginning was kind of their system, right? Base wash layer, and kind of, it gave me like a good framework. As someone who did no painting, it was a godsend just to have someone be like, hey, follow this, you get this effect. And obviously there's still a learning curve when it comes to like, how you thin your paints and layers and that kind of stuff. But on the whole, I felt like it was delivered on really well. So that builds up a lot of rapport with the company. Doug, do you have a list or a vid about in what order to read your lore and backstories? No, I basically have always done lore on a faction by faction basis. So I have playlists. If you go to the playlist tab, you can look at view created playlists, and it lists out every army. I have a video for every, a playlist for every army except for Beastclaw Raiders. And every army is there. And then, I should really go in and reorganize some of those things, because I can probably even detail the lists even better than that. So love those videos. Wish they did one on Keeper of Secrets. Oh, the painting ones? Yeah, I've noticed their painting tutorials, not that they've gone down in quality, I just don't feel like they produce as many. Like, I was really expecting when Contrast dropped to have like a flood of contrast tutorials of like, here, maybe it's like, here's how you paint this basic thing, and then they pause and say, and if you want to make that really cool, you mix these two things with some medium, and boom, there you go. Like, I was really genuinely looking forward to that kind of stuff, because they've done it before, the other stuff. Sorry, I just knocked over some terrain. All these nice new buildings I just built. Okay, we're good. So I was actually very disappointed in that, because they used to do it quite a bit of like, I'm trying to think of a good example. The rust effect one, I did Typhus Corrosion, Riser Rust, and they kind of like paused, like, hey, if you want to do the extra layer, like dry brush of like Stormhost Silver or something like that, and then just never got around to it. So I don't know. Yeah, technical paint ones were pretty fantastic. So what I'm doing right now is throwing down some Gray Seer brush on paint so I can go back and cover up some of these little flower things. Yeah, the Ryza Rust is pretty phenomenal in terms of just doing a good tutorial to get you a good idea of what to do. Yeah, I don't know if they just felt like they weren't, that wasn't helping their bottom line with like paint sales, that kind of stuff. It just seems weird that you would have, a whole new range with which to do exclusive videos, because in theory, with how outstandingly unique they touted Contrast as being, you would think you'd want all the tutorials in the world on whatever your your exclusive thing is. Do you ever do much converting? I did for some of my Chaos heroes a ways back, but I have not converted anything in some time. So my typical policy when it comes to converting is I like to have at least one of what it's supposed to be. All right, let's take just a Stormcast, whatever. I want to have a model of whatever GW envisioned it to be, and then I'll convert my own other stuff so that it doesn't look like there's multiples of the same thing on the table. And I just haven't had a lot of instances where I've ended up buying or wanting to field multiples of the same thing that I would then need to convert the second one. Yeah, I did quite a bit of that for my old Slaves to Darkness army that I cleared out. That's pretty much the most I did. Let's see. I guess is that it takes a deceptively long time to make one. Underworld should bring a bunch of guides. Yeah, I mean, so like, my wife does that kind of content, mostly for crafts, and you do them in these big batches to make it time efficient. Like, I'm sure when they do them, Duncan sits there for 8 hours and just, cranks them out. Like my wife's company, they do that, like I said, for yarn and crochet and that kind of stuff. So you do that to make it time efficient, but the fact that we haven't seen any, you would think they would have done that in advance, get all the videos ready in waves, and then pump them out over time. Let's see, Hugh. Where's Archaon in the realms? We don't actually know. I don't have a solid answer for you, to be perfectly honest. Since they kind of took some time to focus on Nagash with the Necroquake and all that stuff, they just have really not focused on Archaon. I mean, we know he still exists. I guess waiting for the writers to make him the big bad guy again. But I can't even remember. I mean, aside from like passing mentions, like, in the Warcry book, they talk about like all these fighters want to impress Archaon to join his army and have Archaon be like, "Whoa, you guys are so great! Come join my forces." But at the same time, like, Archaon's not there necessarily at the Varen Spire. That's his home base, but he hasn't spent a lot of time at home chilling. He's out there making war, doing stuff. Iron Jaws is the next villain. That'd be cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I mean, honestly, I think the worst thing is when it's all one. Like, I'm not super pumped that it's all about Nagash right now, but I also wouldn't be super pumped if it was all about Archaon. Like, gotta spread the love a little bit. I almost prefer if Forbidden Power was instead of like, oh yeah, this happened with the Necroquake that people just didn't know about, and it revealed all the Stormbolts. I would have been more happy if it was like Chaos Sorcerers under Archaon wove a spell to try and undo the Necroquake, but instead they made the Shockwave that revealed the Stormbolts. And the reason they say that is because now that makes Chaos active participants in what's going on, which right now they're just kind of chilling. That's fine. Sometimes it's good to just chill. But you gotta get back in the game, Archaon. Lone Star Wargaming, hello, hello. Archaon is busy looking for a weapon that rends. Exactly. He's taking the Slayer Kings. He's getting it sharpened. He's putting some flex tape on his wounds. I kind of wonder if Civil War is brewing. I wouldn't mind it. I want them to really flesh out some other stuff before, but I think that that's a cool idea. So nothing Techless or super ticked off at Sigmar. That is true. Techless is not a he's not a happy camper, and Tyrion has never liked him. L'Oreal seems like when your girlfriend's mad at you and you ask her if anything's wrong and she says it's fine. You know it's not fine, but she hasn't given enough information to act otherwise. That's kind of like their tenuous relationship of just like, are you gonna help us? Fine, I'll help. Okay. Any more follow-up questions because you're like, clearly something's wrong, but I'm gonna let her talk to me. So I asked how Jack did, but Michael, how did you do, friend? At your side of things. So he was also at T-Shift, rocking some Iron Jaws. Let's see. Personally, I've never been a fan of the Grand Alliance thing. Seems weird and gamey, but provides an avenue for balancing. Yeah, I mean, I remember really not liking it when they announced it, like when we found out what was going on. But most people in my area are just like, they just don't play Grand Alliance armies. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, oh, okay. So it seems like it didn't really take off maybe the way they intended it to. I think the heart of it was let people build literally any army they want, but I think the way of doing that was more successful with 40k as far as like the different battalions, and that might be confusing because it certainly confused me when 40k, the new edition of 40k, first came out. But at the same time, I do think you know, there are different ways of achieving the same fundamental thing of just facilitating you taking whatever you think sounds cool. But I think the Grand Alliance thing was just so broad. And it came at a time where we hadn't seen anything like that before, and so it was just kind of dropped, and we're like, oh, so we can just do whatever? Okay. Which does not generally fly for gamers. We like to have permission to do things. Hugh, your lore's coming along. That's cool. Just throwing some contrast down all these bad boys. Something I find interesting about AOS, imagining small hamlets get liberated by Drukhari Stormcast. Yeah, it's... I don't know. What are your favorite contrast paints? Magos purple is pretty great because it's nice and thin. You can like do a lot of cool effects with it. What else? Actually, Nazdark yellow works really well. I actually really like that one quite a bit. I used it for, I basically did a Zenithal. I got some orcs from Jack that were Zenithal highlighted, and I did the Nazdark yellow on those, and they came out so cool looking. Let's see, Kellyan green was pretty cool once I figured out how to use it. Oh, Fireslayer flesh. Actually, I like all the flesh paints. To be honest with you, I hate painting flesh. So they've been awesome. Used to do Fireslayer flesh and a light highlight of Cadian Fleshstone. Boom. You're winning. Omniphage 40k seems so gamey, like the Loyal 32. It's basically a way to get a bunch of command points. Yeah, and I know it can be gamed, and I totally don't like that. I was more thinking about how they went about different ways of achieving the same thing. And you know, in terms of like gaminess and that kind of thing, I do think AOS succeeded, because you know, it's one of those things like you can take whatever you want. Probably not great, whereas in 40k it's like you can take whatever you want and it'll probably win you a tournament because you can pull stuff from like, you know, 4 different books or whatever like that, depending on your, you know, obviously your events rules, whatever, but it's kind of all over the place. But I wonder if there was more ways to be able to express that you could take whatever you want. Let's see. Oh, you don't see stuff like that AOS? Yeah, totally. Hugh, you're awesome. Oh, thank you so much. It's very kind of you. I had to thin down a Kellyan with Ethermatic Blue to get the skin tone from my bone splitters. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about thinning down one paint with another. I mean, I just use the medium and build up color into what I want it to be, but... Nice thing is, once this part of the fence is done, like putting the gray seer down, the actual like flowers and rosebuds are going to go lightning fast, and that'll be nice. Then it's just doing some highlight on the bone. We're set. Why no wet palette? Never think to buy one. That's why. I don't have a really good reason. I bought one once at like Hobby Lobby and it was terrible. It didn't work anyway, and I don't know. This wasn't my favorite. So I was like, screw that. And I know that there's nice ones out there, but I never really cared enough. At T-Shift, which I went 1 and 4 at. There are a bunch of Eldar flying lists, knights, and a whole lot else. Yeah, love diversity of AOS. Totally. I was surprised there weren't more orcs. You're talking about the 40k stuff, which took out the majority of that event. I don't know if I would do T-Shift just because I tend to not like 2-day events. Just a lot of time. But yeah, the AOS scene looked far more interesting. This did visually. There was Khorne, Skaven, Gloomspite Gitz looking cool. There was just a whole bunch of stuff. Jack's Shootcast. A lot of cool stuff. B-Smith, there's a $10 Master Sun 1 on Amazon, and my local Target sells cheap pre-cut parchment paper. Right on. Yes, I know there's a lot of things that I do that real painters are cringe at. You know, the way I leave my brushes in the cup and I make a whole mess and I use dirty water. It's just, you know, it's one of those things. Painting for me, for the same reason I didn't enter the Everchosen, right? I think the Everchosen is a really cool idea. But here's the thing, is I put so much of my hobby and my life up for display for people. You know what? Painting's mine. I'm gonna enjoy it. It's never gonna be in a competition. If I go to an event and they give me best painted, that's one thing. But I'm not gonna go out of my way and enter a competition. It's not a skill I want to improve. It's a thing that helps me reach my zen. And you know what? There's good things about mediocrity. I'm okay with being just okay. Don't gotta be the best. Just gotta enjoy it. I'm trying to think if there's any more. Aha! Always, it's so easy to miss little bits of vine and things like that. They're just all over the place on this kit. So, any more? Let me look real quick. Just looking for any more of that vine that I somehow missed. No, not seeing any. Just a little bit. Give me 1 second here. This is where I can't look at the screen because I'm looking for nitty-gritty details. Okay. I think that looks about right. Let's see, Hugh. That's cool. You got your own lore for your own Chaos God. I encourage it. Gerard, do you use Citadel paints exclusively? Nope. I also, my Stormcasts are painted with Army Painter Hydra Turquoise. I really like this one. I use the Citadel stuff because I like the consistency of it. In terms of like from pot to pot, it's pretty consistent. And, but Army Painter does some cool colors that are like kind of in between. So this is like, the equivalent is Sotek Green, but it's like one shade higher. And so I like mine to be a little bit brighter than the GW scheme. So yeah, that's why I do this. So not exclusively, but like 90%. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, in like especially in like the 40k and AOS universe, like there are other chaos gods. It's just there's 4 big ones, so that's cool. Make your own. You do you. Beastmith, as long as you're content, that's all that matters. Yeah. Yep. I mean, there's stuff I still want to learn. Like I want to learn like battle damage and basing, which is why I'm doing those classes respectively at Nova. But you know, not everything needs to be showed off to the world. I'm gonna grab. Let's see. What am I doing next? I'm gonna go dig some paints for me. Give me 1 second. You ever been like, I know I have a paint, but I can't find it? Would have sworn that I had a brand new pot of Wolfthorn Gray of Ushabti Bone, but can't seem to find it. Let's see. Hey Doug, do you know about D&D? I know of D&D. I don't know anything about playing D&D or the stories on that. I have never played a role-playing game in my life. Let's see. Rude Orange Deck Warcry River. I'm ready for Cities of Sigmar and the Great Green Wall. Yeah, dude. Super pumped. Hey Jack, how's your event turned out? I just realized I'm a dingus. I meant to do a wash on all the skulls with Seraphon Sepia before I laid that down. That's okay. Where's the brush? Yeah, man, I'm very excited. Much excited for the Orc book. Bob show. Mainly because it's an army now, I don't have to paint. I get to just have and play, and that sounds really, really nice. Whatever changes come. Yeah, so, like you obviously play Iron Jaws. Are you excited about the idea of having Bone Splitters in your army, or are you just going to stick with Iron Jaws? I'm going to embrace the full gambit. The rumor is they're going to have rules for each side separately, and then like the third, allegiance ability, if you will, is like the Great Wall, where you combine Iron Jaws and Bone Splitters, and then you can do summoning, like calling more orcs into battle, which I'm of a mixed mind about, but it could be cool. I don't want every army to have summoning. If everyone has it, it's not special, but sticking with the Jaws at first. Yeah. Jack, what are you talking about hate, man? Nobody's hating. It's funny. Get all these skills washed. For the most part, all the hard work on this terrain is actually over. And I will likely do a live stream or two the rest of this week. Probably one tomorrow. Basically, I want to have the terrain ready by Thursday when I go to my local group. I'm going out to Monroe this week. Hopefully. Hang out with people out there. My OG group. Identification. See ya. Have a wonderful, well, it's evening for me, but whatever it is for you. Yeah, I think it's interesting in the article where they unveiled the mixed orc battle tome thing. He said that like the hard-hitting Iron Jaws and the speed of the Bone Splitters, I'm like, they don't do anything fast, so I'm assuming they're going to get some kind of rules right to really focus on speed. I'm like, the Gorgrunta is literally faster than anything that the Bone Splitters have, so they have to be thinking of something that we don't know about. I'm like, I don't know what in the heck y'all are talking about. I'm curious if there's going to be faction terrain and what that would look like. I don't know. But I completely forgot that I actually own a rogue idol of Mork, or possibly Gork, but probably Mork. So that'll be exciting to be able to bust that out. Because that'll be an easy paint job too, right? It's just a lot of stone. I can put some little accents on there, but for the most part, it's pretty simple. And certainly, unless they drastically reduce points, which I can't imagine it would be that hardcore. I should certainly have a 2,000 point list pretty much ready to roll day one. I think he's my next painting project. Now that I got all well, at that point I'll have all the warbands and terrain done. Let's see. Oh my god, we're getting there. This is taking forever. Can we kill some Skaven for my possible fan-made character? You can do whatever you want, man. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, here's the big one. I'm so excited to use the terrain feature cards for these bad boys. I'm not sure I love the idea of the game like mandating how terrain needs to be set up. I'm certainly not going to do that all the time. I think for my more narrative stuff, I'm going to be making my own boards. But all in all, I think it's pretty cool. How many Skaven are in AOS? An incalculable multitude. They are without number, beyond numbers even. Trillions. Every nook and every cranny. I think Savage Infantry have a 5-inch move. Iron Jaws 4. Truly high speed. Yeah, that's blistering pace right there. That's the kind of speed. 5 inches is when your gums start flying back because the G forces are just too much. I wouldn't be surprised if they just like amped up the spell lore and gave him some movement abilities. I won't say shenanigans, because Jack has an aversion to that word, but... I'll tell you what I want, though. The only thing I'll be, like... I don't often get disappointed when stuff, you know, I don't get what I want. I tend, whenever a new book comes out, I tend to, like, release all expectations and just kind of, like... You know, get excited for whatever GW's vision of things are. I will say that the one thing I will be sad about is if they come out with endless spells and there isn't a giant green foot of Gork, I will be very disappointed. I just want a giant foot with a gnarly looking toenail, and I want it to be like this big, and I want it to just look gross and awful and awesome. Do you think any models will be updated with the cities of Sigmar? I think all of them will be. Oh, you mean like sorry, I think you mean like War Scroll, like units. Do I think any models? I have no idea. We have no idea. I'd like to think there'd be some heroes or something to show off what they can do and kind of bring them from the everyone's kind of cool and slightly German humans to the more fantastical setting, but I have no idea. Let's see. I'm almost at the 2-hour mark, and I'm just waiting for... Actually, I'm going to throw some wash down in the cracks and crevices here. Yep. Let's see. Iron Jaws were a hard match for me as my smashing and bashing plowed through my army. That's awesome. Let's see. And JT's also building Warcry. Sweet. It is Warcry weekend. What I'm doing is now is just running a wash down all these little bricks just to kind of give them a little bit more definition. And you can be, I'm going to go back over here with the dry brush to make the edges of the stone pop, so you can kind of be messy, which is nice. As long as the dark color fits down into the cracks and crevices, you're all set. Yeah, what the heck? We'll do this little statue thing too. Let's see. Yeah, there are all of the Skaven. How many Skaven? All of them. Quite a few. That's why, like, you know, if this were still the old world, that would be like in a... Oh, it happened in the old world, right? And we saw, if you guys haven't read End Times Thankful, like, a Fire Slayer dude is meandering and finds, like, a breeding pit for Skaven, and they're breeding them at such high rates that it is truly a apocalyptic level event that they will consume the entire old world at some point. And it's like, oh, yeah, they're wrapping this up. Ever worked with Vallejo metallic paints? Getting the paint thin correctly is extremely difficult for me. Nope. I can't say I have. Sorry about that. I know Vince Ventrella really recommends them from what I understand. I think those are the paints he recommends. So I would say go check out his videos. I think he probably has something for that, but no, for metallics, I don't stray far. Honestly, the one thing I will say that I am 100% in with GW and their paints on is metallics. I've like 6 years ago I tried a Vallejo metallic when I first got into the hobby because I was buying everything at Hobby Lobby and for cheap, and that's what they had. They had Vallejo, and I didn't like it. And the second I got Lead Belcher, I was like, oh, this doesn't have to suck. Okay, and then just used nothing else but that since. So hello, the Alexander. We're just hanging out. I'm doing some shading on the cracks and crevasses of a bunch of terrain here. Trying to get everything to look pretty presentable for a game I have tentatively scheduled on Thursday. Cultivating the garden of Morr, that's exactly right. Oh, I think you mean the Sigmarite Mausoleum and the Corpse Rack Mausoleum. It's whatever you want it to be. Just keep renaming it until they don't know what it is anymore. And words mean nothing. And Doug is the lore of AOS Grimdark. It certainly was not when it first started, but they're getting it to be much more dark as time goes. It started off pretty straightforward of good versus evil and that kind of stuff, and the way things have been kind of going thus far is in Soul Wars we learned, like, just from Nagash, like, the gods just use mortals as playthings and toys. And from Nagash's perspective, he's like, well, at least I'm honest about it, which is like, you got me there. So that's kind of undermines some of like these, perfect goodness of Sigmar himself. And then in Forbidden Power, we saw that Sigmar isn't a great guy. He was, even when things were good and there was still the Pantheon, he was hiding weapons of immense power. And using, basically the goodwill of his friends to do so, to kind of stab them in the back. So, like, it's not, I would say it's not, like, oppressively dark, but honestly, I don't think, I think 40k is moving far away from the Grimdarkness, to be honest with you. You look at some of the 40k stuff they have coming out now, like for Space Marine specifically, they don't look the same as they used to. So I don't know. Which, I mean, I like the oppressively dark fantasy. But I understand they need to cast their net pretty wide to get people. Yeah, I just thank you, Michael, for agreeing with me. I look at, like, I don't know, a lot of the artwork, and it seems so much brighter and not cheery. Obviously, it's still a dangerous world, but it's not the same thing as, like, I don't know, ripping a guy's spine out to use him as a jump drive for a computer. that kind of stuff. Where you're just like, oh god. At the clear model range, a lot of clutter with the marine units. Oh, I mean, nothing wrong with it. You know, if people like it, that's awesome. Certainly, it's selling for them. See. I'm just going through, like I said, cleaning up some cracks here. Just hoping that when they get to elves and the other three elven gods, we get something much brighter than a race that has been lied to and one that has been abandoned. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't mind if, like, you know, Tucklesses were like, no, we actually are smart. We actually know what is going on. Because they're all about illumination. Let's see. I want Angel Elves in the Realm of Light. Yeah, dude. Hugh says, but dark 40k is still a lot darker. You know, honestly, let me ask you this, right? When you think about 40k being dark, are you thinking of things that happened more than 2 years ago, like books you read, content, that kind of stuff? Because what I'm saying and what I think Michael is saying as well with me is that, like, they seem to have changed focus. So, like, yes, if you go back in time and you see the settings, like, 40k is significantly darker. But if you look at the stuff they've published since they relaunched it with this current edition, it's just not. It's not nearly as dark. Whereas AOS is getting darker. I don't know. I don't think those lines are so different anymore. You seem to take speed paint to a new level. Well, I try. I try to take maximum efficiency. That's the name of the game. When it comes to terrain, for me at least. I spent more time painting the warbands, I think, than I have for these guys. Warbands being Bone Splitters and Stormcast. Let's see. I want to know what the Angel Elves are going to look like when Stormcast already have plenty of Angel imagery. I don't know. I don't know. Definitely just accidentally threw a empty paint bottle straight at my cat's face. Didn't even see him there. He's fine. He's a trooper. Let's see. Tyler Miller, hi, hello. I'd be all for Old Testament Angel Elves, Flaming Wheels, the 100 Eyes. Yeah, dude. I hope they find more interesting ways to convey light than giving everything a -1 to hit, like they do with the Palisade right now. Sorry, did I get my opinion about 40k? No, there's no wrong opinions. I was just pointing out that, like, yeah, I mean, what I like about 40k is all the things that I remember from, like, 3+ years ago. Like, I really like the darkness, like that oppressive gothic fantasy, that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. Eat it up. Just haven't seen that much from it lately. But you are not wrong, because it's all opinions, my friend. Man, this really is coming all together. Okay, so all I have left is I got to contrast paint all of the roses and the petals, my little crap growing on the vines. I'm going to do basic red and green on those, the same I did for Lady of the Vines. And then I have to do a highlight on the skulls, which technically I don't have to do, but I like to do it. I just flick it a few times with a dry brush with Shopty Bone, just to kind of pick out some of the higher edges. But yeah. It's weird that 40k is in many ways more grim than ever, but the way they are presenting it almost makes it seem hopeful. Yeah, I agree. And the color palette in their art has changed dramatically, for sure. Alexander, are you using 2 thin coats? Of course. Of course. Have you got some Warcry games in yet, and what are your thoughts on it? If so, I played a quick tutorial game with my wife. She was really cool about letting me just kind of walk through the rules so I can like teach other people. Very, very fast, very brutal, and very expandable. As I'm playing the game, I'm like, okay, this is very straightforward, but I'm looking at the rule book, I'm like, but I see all the ways that you can add some really cool things to this. I'm sure there are going to be expansions in the future for just that exact reason. So I'm already cooking up campaign ideas. Not campaign ideas, but like rules expansions, like different actions that you can do. And what else? Incorporating other monsters. So like having people fight a Korgorath, that kind of stuff. My brain's already booming on that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really liked it. It was cool. Let's see. Okay, so I got this guy. He's just trying. Yeah, I think we're pretty much in a good place. Then I have to go back and touch up the stonework on these 3. So basically, when I got the kit, I don't know if you remember, if you guys joined me yesterday, but basically, like, it gives you 2 sets of these 3 buildings, like the steeple and 2 of these kind of like TP house top ones, but only 1 set of the bases. Now let's start looking at the deployment cards, and in every single deployment there is 1 version of them without the bases and 1 version with. I was like, oh, okay, that seems dumb. So I just glued the ones I like the most onto the bases, because why not? But I wasn't expecting to do that. So the buildings are all done on them. I just got to go back and touch up the stone on those things. But everything needs to dry right now. So actually I'm going to throw some wash on the bottom of this guy. And then I'm probably going to hop off for the night. It's been a fun weekend of cranking out Warcry terrain. And I'll be sure to take lots and lots of pictures of stuff as it nears completion. I got a cool photo set up, And if you're available, join me tomorrow night. Probably about the same time, probably around 6:30 or something like that. And I'll be doing yet another live stream as I do kind of the last, what is hopefully, my God, hopefully the last big push of this set. And then I can go back to doing like normal content, recording videos, doing the lore, that kind of stuff. I just wanted to get this done so I can start producing battle reports. Right? I have this and 2 warbands. I'm like, okay. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll catch you all in the next one.